And finally, we have for you guys Matt's Pick of the Week. Now, surprisingly enough, I do not have a story for you guys for this week. Nope, not a single one. Believe it or not, it was actually pretty hard to try to find any animation stories this week. They were actually pretty scarce and pretty rare to find. But anyways, I do have a bit of a replacement, however. Instead of a story to report to you, which contains like a lot of facts and stuff like that, instead I have a theory. A bit of an idea. And this could actually be something that could answer a lot of questions regarding one of the biggest controversies of the year. I am talking, of course, about the controversy that happened during the production of Sausage Party. Now, I understand that there are some people out there that they might be a little bit tired and that this bit of news is starting to get a little bit old, but considering we are talking about the livelihood of animators in Vancouver, I think it is still pretty important that we would that we still make it relevant, that we would still discuss about this, still make it a topic so that we can keep the awareness of what's actually going on in the animation industry in Vancouver, like what's happening right there, so that the end result will be that they'll live, better lives, and that could actually end up with better products with, some good animation stuff coming from Vancouver. Now, the reason why I want to discuss about this is just a little bit of an idea that I had when I was talking with a friend of mine. And my friend actually told me some pretty interesting things regarding the making of Sausage Party that hasn't actually been reported. Now, the funny thing is that, yes, we all hear about the nightmare of a production that happened during Sausage Party. In fact, let me just summarize a little bit of what basically happened. If you don't know the story, is that apparently during the production of Sausage Party, there are some people who did reveal that for the short amount of time that they have worked on there, it was nothing but pure torture. The animators were pretty much forced to work on, they had to be forced to work overtime during the production of Sausage Party and actually not get paid for it. And apparently one of the directors, Greg Tiernan, seemed to be a bit of a tyrant, or at least that's how the animators portrayed them. And not only were they not paid overtime for their work on Sausage Party, but dozens of animators did not get credit for their work on Sausage Party. Like, their name did not appear at the end of the film. So with that said, it actually opened up it pretty much opened a window to a much bigger controversy, and that is what's actually going on during the production of like not just the production of Sausage Party, but the animation industry in Vancouver, where apparently animators are not really paid as much to make a living in Vancouver. And on top of that, it's really sad to report how apparently not being paid overtime seems to be a very common practice in animation in that city. So with all that said, it really opened up the window to a much bigger issue. So with all that said, even though that there are a lot of animators who claim that it's a total nightmare working on Sausage Party, there are also a good amount of people who did say that working on Sausage Party is actually a lot of fun. They enjoyed their time making the film. Not only are they proud of the end result that they end up crafting for that movie, but also they enjoyed the process of making it, and also they did state that they had a lot of creative freedom with it. So, with all that said, how come we didn't hear that part of the story and we're mostly focused on the negative aspect? But on top of that, my friend also mentioned to me how this controversy that occurred, it all happened during the very beginning of production. This was during the very beginning, in the pre-production, and they were about to start on the animation. And on top of that, during that time, it seems that the animators they didn't really know what they were doing. They didn't have a clear direction of where they were going. They don't know what's up. They were pretty much in fear that they'll be so confused and so lost with no sense of direction of what they want to do with this movie, down to the point that they'll end up just, they'll end up wasting Sony's money all for nothing, and the movie will end up being unfinished, and they'll just not meet their deadline, which is probably a nightmare for many animators and, like, many filmmakers out there. But this is where my theory comes in. Now, the reason why all this actually happened is because of two things: the stress and pressure. Now, here's the thing. Now, the controversy, we can all agree, happened very early on in production. And it's at that time that the animators and the filmmakers, they didn't have a clear sense of direction of where to go with it. And of course, they're just worried about if they're ever going to finish the film or not, and if they have an idea of what they're doing, which at the time, they did not. And at that point right there, that's when stress really went high, and poor Greg Tiernan, it really got into it. You know, like, he was just so stressed and so worried, and unfortunately it seems that he had a bit of a short temper, so the pressure really got into him. And because they have such a really small budget, keep in mind, the movie is only estimated $19 million in terms of its budget. It is ridiculously low. That is almost as much as Norm of the North, and that really is saying something, because, my god, Sausage Party looks like 5 times better than freaking Norm. But with all that said, though, like, they don't really want to use so much of that money during, like, just on the early production alone when they don't know what to do. So that would actually explain why the animators had no choice but to work overtime and not get paid for it, because one, they want to find their, like, the ultimate goal is to find a direction to know what they're doing and what's the direction that they want to go to, and two, is because, like, they have that really small, like, it is a very common practice, so, they decided to roll with it, and that's what has to end up happening. And with all that said, even though that, like, the stress was on to everyone, that's why Greg, like, really got into the pressure. He got mad at a lot of animators, and that's why a lot of them ended up quitting they had to end up leaving and quitting. And that's why it was probably during that time also when Greg was pretty much so much enraged to the point that when animators had to quit, like, he had to scratch off their names off of the credits. So, like, you're leaving right now, well then screw you, then you're out of here. So it was pretty much during all this time when they don't know what to do with it, when they had no sense of direction, that they know that they cannot spend as much money just early on in production, because they know that when they have a direction, that's when they gotta go and get to work and get the process done. That's why, that's pretty much why Greg was at his tipping point. That's why he seemed so mad at the time. That's why, like, he was so mad at the animators, because they didn't really know what to do, and, like, they're just stalling for time to figure out what are they going to do with a movie like Sausage Party. But when they finally did get that direction, that is probably when they did get paid. That's when that's when they probably did get paid overtime, so that now that they got confidence in trying to do what they want to do. That's probably where the reports where you would hear some animators actually enjoying their time making Sausage Party. And also, like, there is also the reports of how Annapurna stepped in, and they saw that apparently the process is fine. Apparently that animators are getting paid, and they are getting treated well for working overtime. So that could probably explain that. And another thing that I would like to add as well regarding Sausage Party itself is that, of course, there would be so much stress and pressure in the making of this film, because keep in mind, we are talking about Nitrogen Studios, beforehand, they were just a little company in Vancouver just making little Thomas the Tank Engine projects. Like, no one really cares about them. They were just making some dumb Thomas crap. But then suddenly, they had to go and be assigned to do something like Sausage Party. Now, not only that they have to suddenly work on this R-rated animated feature film, but we're talking about a movie that is pretty much a mainstream, wide-release animated feature film that also includes an all-star cast like Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, Kristen Wiig, Edward Norton, Bill Hader, Selma Hayek, all those people working on this project. This would be something that Sony Pictures Imageworks should be working on, not some small studio like Nitrogen. So of course, the pressure would be at its max for working on a project like Sausage Party. That's why, like, tensions were pretty high. So when you think back at the beginning of the production, of course, when they're thinking about they might not finish this film, like, they're letting so many big people down. Like, this is such a huge responsibility that they have to work on a project like Sausage Party. Like, this is like if like a giant filmmaker would step in and they would ask me if I would go and make like this big name documentary that would be as big as like Super Size Me or March of the Penguins, and I would have the responsibility to direct it, to capture the footage, and to go edit it. Of course the pressure would be so on, like, of course, like, I would be so stressed out during this situation. Like, I would be, you know, like, every day I would have to live in panic, and I would probably lose some sleep into it. So I understand that working on such a huge movie out of the blue would cause some panic. So that would actually explain a lot of the situation about the stress and the panic of what's been going on in the production. This would explain a lot of things. It would explain how the animators at the beginning, like, how in the beginning of the production, they felt panicked that they don't know the direction that they have to go through and have no choice but to work overtime without pay, so that they cannot spend too much of that $19 million just to figure out what to do in this case. This is why Greg Tiernan flipped his lid and, like, he pretty much exploded during the production. He ended up exploding at his you know, he had to explode at his animators. He had to, like, scratch off their names and all that kind of stuff. That would explain his, you know, it would explain his demeanor during this situation. And it would also explain how when they finally did get a direction, when they know what they're doing, that's when Annapurna would step in and they were seeing that everything is fine, apparently. That's when the payment for overtime would actually step in. Now, I just want to say this right now, that even that with this theory, which, keep in mind, like I said before, this is just a theory. Maybe this did not happen. Maybe what I'm saying is 100% bullcrap. Like, it doesn't, like, even though if this is all true, it doesn't necessarily clear many things. Like, it doesn't leave Nitrogen Studios and it doesn't leave Greg Tiernan off the hook. Like, it doesn't take away the fact that a lot of the animators did not receive credit. It doesn't take away the fact about some of these animators did not get paid overtime, regardless of when the production happened. And it doesn't change about what's going on in Vancouver. Like, this is probably one of the best things that happened during the production of Sausage Party, is that it really opened the door to what's actually going on in the animation industry in Vancouver. And through all this investigation, we'll see if things could end up for the better for you know, for Vancouver animators, and maybe they'll end up with an animation union where, like, they'll be certified and fully confident that they can work and make a living at the same time. Like, now, it doesn't answer a lot of the questions, but it does answer some really good ones, and it would definitely open up the case. Well, actually, not open up the case, but I mean, like, it would definitely answer some questions regarding Sausage Party itself and what happened with Nitrogen Studios and Greg Tiernan. So at least Nitrogen and Greg would not be seen as like this evil corporation, and Greg is not on the side, like dressed up like Snidely Whiplash, like looking at his animators working overtime and holding like a bunch of $20 bills, just twirling his mustache, going ha 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 ha. Like it would probably answer some questions. But then again, like I said before, this is just a theory. Maybe not all of this is true. I am not expecting everything that I said is 100% factual, but, I'm just trying to contribute and trying to help this situation. Honestly, I would like to see something good to come out of this. I would love to see justice for the animators. I would love to see them get both paid and credit for the entire work that they have done. I just want to contribute and help and hopefully, have a better world for the Vancouver animators out there. So hopefully this can answer some questions that it's not really the case because the Vancouver animation industry is evil. It's just that when it comes to Sausage Party and the making of Nitrogen, they were just under the pressure of making a big name R-rated animated feature.